Okay, hello. This is my recapitulation basically of a little discussion about how to use MySQL interactively. It's probably not all that convenient generally to do data definition type activities like creating tables and the like using code. It You certainly can, but generally speaking, you'd probably have designed your tables, your entire database beforehand. So it's a good idea to have some understanding of this process. I also need to point out once again that, well, a couple of things. One, we are working with MySQL 4, so it's a generation back. It's perfectly adequate for our needs, but there is a newer version. And I myself will be upgrading it for my Linux boxes at the school at the end of this semester. um, the other thing, of course, is that there are actually GUI interfaces to MySQL. You probably should know that as well. But once again, if you can work at the command line, the GUI is always easy. And the command line is often the only option that you'll have available to you in, say, a genuine server, because you would, of course, turned off the GUI to get back the clock cycles. All right, I'm actually doing this on my Mac, and that's why the prompt looks a little different perhaps than you might see. But I'm going to go ahead and log into Junior from here. Because I'm on my Mac, get to use SSH. Okay, you would have to do this probably with PuTTY or the software SSH, and I'll prepare a little discussion about that next time. But for the time being, just bear with me in this one part. So I get to type SSH. Isn't it nice to use a Unix-based system? SSH, and I'm going to use that fictitious student that I created. So FA09 student at junior.nvcc.edu, and of course I type in that student's password. Let me clear that. Now, of course, I want to see where I am. I should be in my home directory, but I can type pwd, print working directory, and I can see exactly where I am. Now, that's not going to impact anything that I do with MySQL. It's just often a good idea to have some notion of where you are. Now, all right, so let's start up MySQL. Remember, it's MySQL -u for the user, and I say who I am, FA09 STUDNT, and I do need to put -p to tell it I'm going to use a password, but there's a little quirk in MySQL, this version, and that is the password has to be passed encrypted rather, but it's not going to be in this particular case because I'm just typing at the command line. So I just type the P to tell it I'm going to use the password. It's going to ask me for the password. I'll type it in. Now, if everything works well, then you're going to see the welcome to MySQL monitor. Okay. You could actually take a look at help, get some notion of the commands that might be available to you. Most of these are actually of a system level commands, and they probably aren't going to be available to you with your privilege levels, but you can certainly take a look at them, get some sense of what's going on. And some of them, I quite frankly have never seen the use for, like change my prompt. You could do that if you want, but generally speaking, that's the least of my worries, and probably for you as well. All right, so let's go ahead. Remember that when you first log in to MySQL, you're just sitting sort of in Never Never Land. You're sitting over top of the databases, but you're not in a database, so you have to use one. It's done this way because you could in fact have privileges in more than one database. So the easiest way to see what you have access to, of course, is to type show databases with the semicolon, and that tells me this is the only one that I've got privileges to, FA09 student. All right, now in order to use that, I have to type use. All right, FA09 STUDENT, and that changes the database. Right now I am in that database, okay, inside of it in a manner of speaking. Now at this point I no longer focused on databases. They're kind of an envelope around the tables and other features and functions that you can find in a relational database. Now, though, I want to work with tables. All right, so I can type show tables, and well, we were working with that one table with our last example, and we'll continue working on it. So I'm going to create another table. Okay, so remember that in order to create a table, you need to know certain details about how this is going to come together. You're going to need to know what column or columns you want. Okay, obviously you need to know its name, and if it has a primary key or other constraints. Now, this is not really a database course per se, so we're not going to worry about constraints too much other than primary keys. But generally speaking, although you can use the alter table command to make changes in your table, it's probably not a good idea to make wholesale changes once you've created a table, and it's downright dangerous if you've actually populated it with data, because you might inadvertently lose things that become very important. One of the more interesting aspects of working with databases is data spoils. Once you capture it, in a manner of speaking, you can't recreate easily the conditions that enabled you to capture that. So if you were, say, entering student records and you lost all the student records from 3 years ago, it'll be extremely difficult to recreate those. So it's very important to take all the steps that you possibly can to avoid the spoilage of data. All right, so let's get back to creating a table. And of course the syntax is create table, then you name it. All right, so I'm going to call this test1. Now, we next enumerate the columns in test1. What kind of data we want. So I'm going to say that I want, say, ID, and that's going to be of type int. And then I'm going to say I want name, and that's going to be of type char. Okay, and then I'm going to say, I'll just say zip, and zip happens to be a char because you don't do any sort of arithmetic operations on a zip code. All right, so, and if you were actually including Canadian addresses here, you wouldn't be able to because they're alphanumeric. All right, so zip then is going to be char, what is that, 5? Char 5. All right, that should take care of it, except of course we would then say primary key ID, right? Now, I make lots of mistakes, but I believe that this one probably should be okay off the top of my head. All right, good enough. Okay, so we've created a table, and just for our sense of not show databases, edification, we might want to show the tables, and there it is. Again, remember, if you want to see the structure of a table, the command is describe and then name the table. So describe test1, and there's our table.